Yo, what's up? It's me, Tim Keys, and I wanted to hop on here real quick and talk about Arturia's new version of their collection. They're up to version 11, and they have added quite a few new plugins. I'm not going to go over all of them because I'm just not. I did want to talk about the JP 8000, and the JUP 8000, Arturia's version modeled after Roland's JP 8000 analog modeled synthesizer. I have to say, if there's one machine that I kind of regret not buying, it's this machine right here. Like the hardware version, the JUP 8000, the JP 8000. I remember a friend had it at Guitar Center, and it had been sitting there. He used to work at Guitar Center. He was like, "Man, you should buy this." And I was like, I don't know. Because, when I was younger and just getting into sound design, like sonically, it reminded me of some of the sample based, synths that I had already owned. Not realizing that this was analog modeled and how you can go about modifying your samples or whatnot, or not your samples, how to go about modifying your sounds in the oscillator is slightly different in terms of how that tone is generated compared to like a sample-based synthesizer. Nothing wrong with sample-based synthesis. In my opinion, like it's very flexible, especially depending on what you're using. But I didn't realize this was analog modeled. And with the analog modeling, yes, it's all based on how you program the oscillators, but I find in certain instances I can take things in a different direction than I can with traditional sample-based synthesis, just because sample-based synthesis is also contingent upon how things are sampled, analog modeled. I'm going to get more of that feel of closer to, a analog synthesizer, give or take, because not all analog synths are made equal. But this right here definitely is a welcome addition to Arturia's lineup. And like they have a nice selection of patches, nice selection of pads that you can pick. Try this warm pad. So I like that. I like that sound. Let's keep going. Let's do the Venga Party. This is one of those hold down. I feel like if I was doing techno, those three keys would be enough right there to do its own deal. All right, so going over the architecture layout, I do appreciate this whole visual feedback I'm getting. It's highly distracted, but I like it. So you got your super saw, your triangle wave modulated, noise, feedback oscillator, square, sawtooth, and triangle. Then over here, you have your standard waveforms without the sign, pulse width, sawtooth, triangle. You can set the tone, you can set the pulse width, you can adjust the oscillator. Here, likewise, you can adjust the tuning, the octave, the coarse, that's fine tuning. You can mix between oscillator 1 and 2 to thicken your sound. Then over here you have the filter section, low pass, band pass, all standard stuff. And then you have your filter envelope, how much of it you want, LFO, you can pan, amplitude envelope, all the stuff over here, oscillator common, how you want to set it up. Again, the LFO, tone, you can add bass treble, and then, simple effects, nothing over the top. And then if you want to get more in depth, you can go here to advanced. It opens up the sequencer, which is quite nice. More effects, all of those different options, your compressors, delays, and so forth. same thing. Just a nice selection of stuff. Then you go into your function section. You got 3 different deals, so you can set stuff accordingly. Keyboard tracking, velocity, aftertouch, MPE slide. I may have to set this up in Ableton and run my MPE controller in just to see what I can get out of it. That's nice. I shot this video like last week and did not catch this. So this is nice to point out. MPE support. And then you have your macro knobs, which is nice. So yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm going to play a few more of these sounds. I'm not going to go overboard just because I'm not. Uh-oh, I got some delay. Got some delay. That's okay. Panic all sounds off. It does take a fair amount of RAM. And again, I'm still on my laptop. I need to quit being lazy and set everything up on my desktop. But it is what it is. So be mindful if you are using Arturia. Some of their patches, depending on what you're using, can be very resource heavy. So keep that in mind. Let's go to the brass and let's see what they got. That sound, that sawtooth, and iterations of it was used on a fair amount of trap albums. Through the Phantom. Let's go back. Let's go to the pad. 7th Siren. Let's see what we got. Alright, not bad. Definitely made for trance. Trance and techno. It's not bad. Alright, so you get the drift. Yeah, I'll say this. Like, I'm not going to cover all of the plugins. I mainly wanted to focus on this one. Arturia, in my opinion, they do a great job with the analog modeling side of things. And they do a good job recently with just like offering people just a wide selection of tools they can use to make music. And, you know, how much does this thing sound like the real, you know, JP 8000? Honestly, I couldn't tell you because I haven't used or played, I should say. I haven't played a real JP 8000 in some years. But, I mean, I would say it's pretty close to it that you should be able to, like, get your point across. And, you know, the average listener is not going to throw a hissy fit. Like, that's one thing to remember. Like, your average listener and the way people listen to music these days, you know, all the streaming and the MP, you know, 3 files or whatnot that we're using. Oh, my gosh. Nah, this one takes up a lot. It takes up a lot. This one takes up a lot of resources, more intensive than the last plugin. So what I'm going to do to save this computer and the listening experience, so we're going to go to leads, go from there. That's still taking up a lot of resources. This is supposed to be modeled off the Italian synth, and I know this came out last year back in the fall, and you could have bought this and did an upgrade to version 10 for about $100 to $150, which, depending on what version you were on, this is not a bad deal. I didn't upgrade, obviously, as you can see, because I'm still in demo mode. All right, let's do landing. Not gonna work. Yeah, that's not gonna work because I have a lightweight of a laptop. Lead onwards, not bad. Warm eternity. That's cool. Let's drop the octave. Now I wonder how this compares to UVI's reiteration of this synthesizer. I don't have Cherry Audio's version. I do have the UVI version. I might come back and do a shootout on the big computer, just so I can test it out and y'all can see if you hear the difference. Mind you that UVI's version is all sampled, so everything they have is a sample version. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, IK Multimedia, they might have one in their collection too. Both of those are sampled versions, whereas this one is, analog model. So supposedly there are no samples operating, this VST. It's all physical model, analog model. So that's cool. All right, I'm about to hop off of here. So yeah, one thing I'll say again, Arturia is one of my favorite plug-in companies at this point, and their strong suits tend to be like, they can take these classic synthesizers and they can model them in such a way that they have, captured the feel for that particular instrument. Is it a perfect one-to-one replication? Probably not. But then again, mind you, if you had two classic Moog Model Ds from like the 70s or whatnot, and you had two separate synths, they're not going to sound exactly the same. They're going to be different. So that's one of the, I guess, like the mute point for me. Like, yeah, if you need the actual hands-on with the knobs and the twists and the turns, like if you need that experience, then I would say by all means go for it. Or if you got like an additional, $15,000 to $20,000 to just throw at a wall and buy like the hardware unit, I'd say go for it. But if you want to get like that classic analog sound and get a close approximation, get the feel of the instrument, and, have most of the capabilities and some extras, by all means, I would say go with Arturia. They do a great job. And like I said, in my opinion, they've been doing a great job for the past few years. They're one of my favorite plug-in companies as of late because of how consistent they've been with their products. And they have other products besides like the analog modeling styled instruments. They have physical model pianos. They have sample-based pianos, sample choir, sample brass, sample strings. Like, they are covering a broad range of sounds. And then there's also pigments. So like, you can't go wrong with Arturia in my opinion. So that's it for this video. I'm Tim Keys. I'm out. Peace.